There is an inter-movement relationship among structural tetrads I should like to point out. One of the culminating tetrads of the second movement and the culminating tetrad of the third movement exhibit 3 out of 4 common pitch classes, quite similar spacing, and a voice exchange. The only pitch class difference resolves by semitone in the same register. This, despite the seemingly disparate aesthetic landscapes of the two movements. Movement 4 is obviously quite similar to Movement 2, and employs a goodly number of the same foregrounded pitch structures as does Movement 2. However, Movement 4 formally maintains a quasi-palindromic relationship with Movement 2, such that the Movement 2 measures 6 through 52 material now appears at the end of Movement 4, making it culminating rather than introductory material. Here then is a background graph of Movement 4. Due to the similarity of the two movements, however, and in the interest of time, I have not made an audio transcription of this background. The fifth movement is the movement in which the starkest aesthetic contrasts occur. It is in this movement where the ideals of ars combinatoria are truly put to the test, where Rochberg attempts to achieve coherence even while juxtaposing quirky modernism and quoted Mahlerisms. The opening motto of Violin 1, Measure 1, deploys a new tetrad in a prominent position, 0-1-2-6. It differs from 0-1-2-7 by a semitone, and 0-1-4-6 by a whole tone. At measure 211, a 4-note motto appears in the tonal section that is a counterpart to the post-tonal motto. It is related through octatonic modular transformation. Thereafter, through measure 234, a series of modular transformations on 0, 1, 2, 6 appears. Take note of the last 3 transformations pertaining to 0167, 0126, and 0156. While these transformations are germane, there is a simpler commonality, a mutual subset of 016. This is the set that projects itself across the background of the movement, in fact, twice. There are some fascinating features of this particular background. First, note the palindromes, the ABA structure of post-tonal, tonal, and post-tonal. Slur A, D5 up to A5, mirrored by slur A prime, A5 falling back to D5. And slur B, A3 up to D sharp 4, mirrored by slur B prime, E flat 4 falling back to A3. Because of the monumental proportions of the movement, the head tone doesn't emerge until well into it at measure 153. In the meantime, 2 quasi-head tones appear in the beginning, E flat and B flat. The B flat appears as a 4th note added to the lower structural triad, the culmination of the tonal section of the movement, while the E flat appears, respelled as D sharp, as a 4th note added to the upper structural triad, the culmination of the final post-tonal section. Taken as tetrads, these two sonorities comprise the all too similar 4-8-0-1-5-6 and 4-9-0-1-6-7 sets. Both tetrads have the common property of being comprised of 2 symmetrically interlocking 3-5 sets, remembering that 3-5 itself twice projects itself in the background of the movement. Because there are 2 backgrounds, there are 2 head tones. The second head tone is an A. As it happens, all 5 movements have at least 1 head tone, that is the pitch class A. The middle movement is nominally in A major. The tonal section of this movement spends a good deal of time in the closely related key of D major. It is not for nothing, then, to observe that the pitch class of the other head tone of the 5th movement is indeed D. In closing, I agree with Reise. The conclusion that Rochberg's music is reactionary is erroneous. Reise argues, slyly suggesting a bit of a paradox, that Rochberg's embrace of the past makes him progressive. I hope to add that technical developments in the deconstruction of false aesthetic dichotomies make Rochberg's music progressive. Rochberg's proclivities toward deep background unification across aesthetic boundaries provide a model and a way forward for composers both to embrace plurality of aesthetics within the bookends of single works, and yet still achieve coherence and ingenuity while doing so. Though Rochberg deconstructs many aesthetic false dichotomies, perhaps the most important one he deconstructs is the false dichotomy between pluralism and depth. Thank you.